People say, do one thing, do another thing, and lie with their mouths, but they tell the truth with their reactions. Every handshake, every compliment, every apology, every favor, they're all plays on the surface. And most people, they believe the words. They cling to the idea that honesty is spoken. But Machiavelli knew better. He understood something most never grasp. Intentions aren't revealed in speech. They're revealed in silence, in subtle delays, in the flicker of discomfort when you succeed, in the tension in their voice when they say they're happy for you, in the moment they think no one's watching. Instinct never lies. And instinct always escapes just for a second before the mask comes back on. That's where the truth lives. And that's where you begin to reclaim your power. This video isn't about being paranoid. It's about being precise. It's about seeing through the noise, through the nice words and empty praise and soft tones, to the raw data behind them. Because you're surrounded by people with agendas. Some harmless, some dangerous, some smiling as they sabotage. And if you don't know how to detect those motives early, you will find out when it's too late. But here's the good news. You don't need to guess. You don't need to wait for betrayal to strike. You can provoke clarity with calm precision. You can test people the way Machiavelli did, in controlled, quiet moments. Then watch as their real nature leaks through. You'll see who's secretly envious, who's only loyal when they're winning, who wants your spotlight but won't admit it. And more importantly, you'll learn how to never be surprised again. By the end of this video, you'll have 7 Machiavellian tests, subtle, surgical, and devastating. Not to manipulate, but to observe. Not to destroy, but to reveal. Because once you see the truth behind the smile, the mask never fits again. And that is how real power begins. If you're watching this, you already know the truth. The world is not ruled by honesty. It's ruled by strategy. And the ones who win aren't always the loudest or the kindest. They're the ones who see behind the curtain and move accordingly. This channel is for you, for the ones who want to stop being the target and start becoming the strategist, for the ones who are done being manipulated by charm, apology, or reputation. If that's you, subscribe now, because here we don't talk about theory, we talk about power. Cold, calm, deliberate. And if you've ever felt that fire in you, the one that says, I see more than I let on, you belong here. Today we expose those fake intentions and see people for who they are. Let's get into it. Test number 1. The denied favor test. This test is silent, but it hits like a hammer. It doesn't need confrontation. It needs timing, precision, and the discipline to watch what most people overlook. Here's how it works. You ask for something small, a favor, a quick opinion, help with something you know they can easily do. It might be, hey, could you review this real quick? Would you mind giving me a ride? Think you could make an intro for me? Simple. Nothing burdensome, something they could grant without effort. Then, you retract it. You say, actually, never mind. Forget I asked, I figured it out. And now the test begins. Because most people react in one of 2 ways, relief or regret. Relief? That's not a good sign. It means they never intended to help. They were already crafting the delay, the excuse, the dodge. And now that you've pulled back, their mask drops just a little. Their smile comes faster. Their tone lifts. They say, oh, okay, cool, too quickly, too eager, too relaxed. That's the slip. That's the truth Machiavelli lived for. Not in grand betrayals, but in the micro behaviors that reveal a person's real calculus. Because here's what just happened. They got caught preparing to not show up for you. And now they're off the hook. You didn't expose them. They exposed themselves. That's why this test works so well. Because the person believes they've escaped a situation. But what they don't realize is, the escape was the trap. Now contrast that with someone who did intend to help. When you retract your request, they lean in. They say, hey, no, I got you. Are you sure? I was just about to do it. They don't relax when the ask disappears. They double check. They care. that's a signal. But if someone's tone improves the moment you no longer need them, you just confirmed something crucial. They like the version of you that's powerless, but they won't lift a finger for the version that's rising. Here's why Machiavelli used this kind of test constantly. Because he understood that intentions are not measured by promises. They're revealed by reaction to opportunity. And when a person has the chance to be there for you, and their first instinct is comfort at your withdrawal, that is someone who was only ever performing loyalty. Never confront them. Never reveal the test. Just catalog the result. From now on, you know, they won't catch you when you fall. They won't lift you when you rise. They'll watch, quietly, and wait until you no longer need them to finally exhale. That's not a friend. That's a handler in waiting. Someone who sticks around only for access, not effort. Machiavelli would never place his trust in that kind of person. He would observe, adjust their role, and move on. The denied favor is one of the cleanest, most untraceable diagnostics in the strategist's toolkit. No drama, no pushback, just one moment that tells you everything you need to know. Because when someone's willingness to help only exists theoretically, you're dealing with a liability, not an ally. So remember, sometimes the best way to find out who's real is to give them a chance to help, and then remove it. Let them show you what they were planning to do all along. And when they do, never forget it. Test number 2. The celebration test. You just got good news. You landed the promotion, closed the deal, got the win. And now you're about to find out who's truly in your corner. Because nothing exposes hidden resentment faster than your success. You walk in, you smile, you share it. I got it. The project was a hit. They chose me. And then you watch. Not their words, not their tone, their eyes. Do they light up immediately as if your victory feels like theirs? Or is there a slight delay, a tiny flicker of calculation, as if they're processing how your win affects their position? Machiavelli understood this dynamic perfectly. He didn't believe you measure loyalty in shared suffering. You measure it in shared celebration, because when you're struggling, even your enemies look supportive. But when you rise, that's when envy breaks through the cracks. Most people don't even realize they're failing the test. They smile a half-second too late. Their voice doesn't match the energy of their face. They say the right thing, but it lands hollow. Their mask is smiling, but their instincts are twitching. Why? Because your success is a mirror. It reflects back their stagnation, their insecurity, their need to be the one ahead. Now understand this. The celebration test is not about confrontation. You're not calling anyone out. You're watching. You're collecting data. You're silently updating the map of who's with you and who's competing with you while pretending to clap. Here's how you run it. You share your win with intentional calm. No bragging, no overexcitement, just clarity. Then say nothing else. Let the silence do the heavy lifting. Let them feel it. Their first reaction is the real one, not the words they choose after 3 seconds of processing, but that first micro-expression, those eyes, that breath, the flicker of their posture. That's where their truth leaks out. A true ally will celebrate instinctively. They'll light up, speak fast, lean in. Why? Because they don't feel threatened. They feel proud, inspired, energized. Your win affirms their loyalty. It doesn't threaten their image. But the false ones, they hesitate. They delay praise. Or worse, they pivot. They say, oh yeah, that's cool. I just got offered something too. Or nice, must be nice when people just get handed stuff. They inject subtle competition into your moment. Why? Because in their mind, your win makes them smaller. They're not wired for shared growth, they're wired for comparative status. Machiavelli would mark this moment permanently. He wouldn't confront, he wouldn't accuse, he would downgrade access. Why? Because a person who struggles to clap when you win will never protect you when the stakes get real. You may keep them in the room, but never in the war council. Now, here's the final layer. Don't just test them once. Run the celebration test multiple times over months. Small wins, big ones, public victories, private triumphs. See who's consistent. See who celebrates loudest when no one else is watching, because loyalty doesn't announce itself. It proves itself when your success costs them nothing. And if they fail this test, you don't rage, you don't distance with drama, you simply adjust your investment. They may still be around, but now they're just background noise in your strategy, not pillars of your progress. That's the Machiavellian mindset. Watch everyone, trust slowly, celebrate wisely. Because some people smile when you win, but only because they're studying how to take your place. The next test is very important, and it is one you encounter every day. Have you ever encountered the previous two tests before? Share in the comment section and don't forget to subscribe. Test number 3. The small disagreement test. There's a subtle moment in every relationship, one that reveals everything you need to know about a person's ego, security, and inner ranking system. It's not when you fight, it's not when you confront. It's when you simply disagree. Slightly, calmly, casually. This is the small disagreement test, a Machiavellian maneuver that forces people to reveal how they handle resistance without ever being challenged directly. Here's how it works. You voice a gentle difference of opinion. You say something like, "Actually, I see it a little differently." Or, "I'm not sure I agree, but that's an interesting take." It's not aggressive, it's not condescending, it's just different. And then you watch. Because what happens next, that's where the truth slips out. Do they pause? Curious? Do they ask questions? Do they lean in, explore your angle, engage you with maturity? If so, you're dealing with someone who values thought over dominance. Someone whose ego isn't so fragile that it crumbles at the idea of not being universally agreed with. But if their tone shifts, if they go quiet, go cold, get defensive, if they mock your view subtly, raise their voice slightly, or repeat their own point louder, that's not debate. That's insecurity with a mask on. They're not hearing you, they're feeling threatened by you. Because to some people, the slightest deviation from their view feels like war. Why? Because your disagreement challenges the image they've built, the image of being right, being smart, being above. Machiavelli observed this in courts, councils, and kings. The most dangerous people weren't the loudest or the cruelest. They were the ones who demanded subtle obedience, who saw even polite disagreement as a signal of disloyalty. These are the people who punish you quietly, by withdrawing support, by changing energy, by smiling with their face but tightening their tone. And when someone responds to mild dissent with subtle hostility, you've just discovered their true priority. Not truth, not dialogue, not growth, control. This test is lethal in its elegance, because you don't argue, you don't challenge, you don't even try to win. You simply differ, and the way they respond tells you everything. If they need you to echo them to feel close to you, that's not partnership, that's ego worship. And when you inevitably have to take a real stand on a real issue, they will turn on you. Not because you wronged them, but because you disobeyed them. So what do? Exactly what Machiavelli would. You mark them. You don't confront. You don't escalate. You simply adjust access. You never trust deeply in someone who punishes difference. Because the moment your independence shines too brightly, they will do everything they can to dim it. This test may seem small, but it's one of the most predictive you'll ever run. It tells you who can walk beside you and who secretly wants you walking behind. Because in power dynamics, silence after disagreement isn't peace. It's a warning shot. Test number 4, the credit split test. Power doesn't just reveal itself in isolation, it reveals itself in collaboration. You want to know who someone really is? Work with them, build something together, succeed, and then watch what they do when the spotlight turns on. This is the credit split test, a quiet, Machiavellian diagnostic for exposing ego, envy, and entitlement without ever raising your voice. Here's how it works. You achieve something together. A project, a campaign, a big win. The kind of result that makes people take notice. Now you deliberately step back. You give them room. You even praise them first. You say, honestly, you were a big part of this, or wouldn't have pulled it off without you. And now, the test begins. Because what they say next will tell you who you're really standing beside. Do they say, yeah, we both killed it. Man, your leadership made it all happen. We made a solid team. If they do, that's a signal of shared power. A rare sign that they don't need to hoard credit to feel valuable. But if they smile, accept your praise, and then say nothing, or worse, redirect the glory entirely to themselves, that's the slip. They say, yeah, I really had to push hard on that. I pulled some strings, made it work. It was a lot, but I handled it. Or they just let the compliment hang, silent, absorbed, as if your effort was expected and theirs was exceptional. That silence, that self-centered detour, that's not just poor social grace. That's a glimpse of a parasite mindset. They're not in it to build with you. They're in it to build on top of you. You're a rung on the ladder, a function, not a partner. And this is where people get manipulated most, in shared success. Because the mask of teamwork hides the most dangerous kind of ego. The one that smiles at you while quietly erasing your role. The one that accepts your generosity as their entitlement. Machiavelli understood this deeply. He watched how men behaved when the fruits of labor arrived, and he knew that's when envy sharpens its teeth. Because failure has a way of uniting people. But success? That's where fractures form. That's where quiet resentment begins to breed. So when you run this test, don't explain it. Don't ask them to share credit. Just observe. And remember, anyone who can't share credit today will sabotage you tomorrow. This isn't paranoia. It's pattern recognition. And this pattern? It repeats in every power structure on Earth. The executive who hogs all the praise and delegates all the blame. The teammate who forgets you when they get their shine. The partner who only celebrates the mirror, not the team. If someone erases your name while shaking your hand, that's not just disrespect. That's strategy. So what do? Nothing. Not at first. You catalog the data. You shift your posture. You remove emotional investment from someone who sees you as a means to an end. Because once someone shows you they can't celebrate you, they are silently competing with you. And Machiavellians? We don't compete with those who pretend to collaborate. We step back and let them climb their imaginary ladder alone. Because the higher they go on a structure built by ego, the harder they fall when no one shows up to catch them. Test number 5, the public praise test. Watch people when the spotlight turns on. That's when the real performance begins. This is the public praise test, a Machiavellian maneuver that doesn't just expose private envy, it reveals public hierarchy. Here's how it works. You lift someone up, not privately, not quietly, but publicly, in front of a group, a room, an audience. You say something genuine. Couldn't have done it without her. He handled that better than anyone I've seen. He's the reason this even worked. And then you watch. Not for what they say, for how they respond. Do they reflect the praise? Do they acknowledge your role? Do they nod, smile, and pass the energy back to you? Or do they absorb it, soak it in like it was owed to them? Smile wider, stand taller, grow louder. Do they use that moment to climb? Because here's what Machiavelli knew. When people are praised publicly, their instinctual hierarchy response is triggered. The ones who respect you use that moment to build the bridge higher. The ones who secretly compete use it to push you down gently. They might not say it outright. They won't disrespect you directly, but they'll change their tone. They'll amplify their achievements. They'll pretend your words were the wind, just background noise to their rise. And in that moment, you've seen their ambition exposed, not their gratitude. Understand this. When people are acknowledged in front of others, they're being handed social capital. What they do with it reveals everything about their intentions. If they use it to raise both of you, you've got a partner. If they use it to elevate just themselves, you've got a ladder climber in disguise. And this test, it's priceless in politics, in teams, in relationships, because people behave differently when they know they're being watched. Praise in private is safety. Praise in public is power. That's why the public praise test works. It introduces social leverage into the equation. And here's the Machiavellian twist. You want them to think it was unintentional, that your compliment was just generous, not strategic. Because when people think they have earned public admiration freely, their guard drops. And how they carry themselves in the minutes that follow. That's the truth. Do they become more gracious or more arrogant? Do they stay collaborative or subtly compete? Do they keep the group's focus on the collective or start rewriting the spotlight to center themselves? This test is quiet, but it's nuclear. It tells you who will stand beside you when you win, who will try to eclipse you in front of others, who believes praise is a tool to uplift, and who sees it as fuel to dominate. Machiavelli never feared public praise, he weaponized it. He understood that giving someone the stage tells you what they'll do when they think the crowd belongs to them. If they honor you, keep them. If they eclipse you, outmaneuver them. Because those who can't share a spotlight will always try to push you off the stage. Test number 6, the delayed response test. Silence. Not the kind that soothes, the kind that speaks. This is the delayed response test, a Machiavellian filter disguised as a pause. You reach out, message, call, a request, something timely, maybe even important, and then you wait. Not anxiously, not emotionally, but tactically, because how someone responds when you need something versus when they do exposes the true hierarchy they've assigned to you. This is what Machiavelli understood. Speed of response is not just about time. It's about priority. And priority is the currency of loyalty. Let's break it down. You send a message, clear, reasonable, no pressure, and they delay. They see it, but they don't answer. Not for hours, maybe days, no explanation, no context. Then days later, they need something, and suddenly they respond instantly. Fast, engaged, precise. That discrepancy? That's not a coincidence. That's exposure. It's not that they're too busy. It's that they don't feel urgency unless it's for them. When you need them, they ration their energy. When they need you, they flood you with presence. This test is so simple, most miss it, but Machiavellians don't. We recognize that response time is a silent confession of respect, of utility, of how much value they believe you carry. The Machiavellian sees delayed response as a whisper that says, you're optional. You can wait. I come first. But here's the move. You don't confront them. You don't ask why they took so long. You don't explain your worth. You mark them. Because this is now a pattern, one that shows you how they'll behave in crisis. One that tells you exactly how much of your urgency they're willing to carry. And you use that pattern in reverse. Next time they reach out, you don't rush, you don't prioritize, you mirror the value they assign to you, not to punish, to calibrate. You match energy, not emotion. Because what Machiavelli taught us is this: the moment you chase someone who delays you, you lower your strategic frame, you signal need, and that gives them control. Instead, you remain calm, cool, measured. You slow down, not out of bitterness, but out of balance. Because power doesn't chase, it observes, and then it adjusts. Here's the brutal insight. If someone only shows urgency when it benefits them, you're not a connection, you're a tool. And Machiavellians don't give access to tools that don't return value. This test? It's not about communication, it's about control. And the moment you recognize that, you begin to restructure how you respond to everyone. You no longer give instant clarity to those who give you silence. You no longer offer full access to those who ration theirs. You no longer stay emotionally available to those who are strategically distant. Because loyalty isn't measured in words. It's measured in minutes. And people who make you wait will never help you win. By now, you've run the tests, you've seen the smiles that faded too fast, the tone that lifted too quickly when you withdrew a favor, the silence that screamed louder than words when credit was split. And now the question hits, what do you do with what you've seen? Here's the truth most people can't handle. You don't react. You reposition. Machiavelli didn't chase apologies. He didn't call out traitors. He didn't warn people he'd seen through them. He adjusted the game silently. While everyone else kept dancing to music, he stopped playing. Step 1, change nothing immediately. The first rule of exposure is restraint. The second you confront someone for failing your test, you give them power. You alert them. Now they know you're watching. Now they start crafting a new mask. Instead, you say nothing. You behave as if you saw nothing. But inside, you've already made the shift. From trust to calculation. From openness to reserve. From alliance to containment. Because real power isn't in showing people you've caught them. It's in knowing who they are and still holding your composure. You don't rip off the mask. You watch how long they wear it. Step 2, shift from investment to extraction. Once someone fails, they no longer deserve your time, trust, or resources. But that doesn't mean they're useless. You move from giving to gathering. Ask yourself, what do they still have that's of value? What access can be monitored, not empowered? What information do they unintentionally leak? This isn't cruelty, it's containment. You're not punishing them, you're mining them. And when they've got nothing left to give, you fade. No drama, no warning, just absence. Step 3, redesign their role in your power structure. Not all traitors need exile. Some are more useful under supervision. Machiavelli often kept his enemies close but compartmentalized. Why? Because people who think they still have influence talk freely. They underestimate your awareness. They leak information. They expose their next moves trying to test yours. So reposition them. Remove their decision-making power. Limit their visibility. Stop disclosing your plans. Let them stay in the room. But take away the keys. And when they ask why the temperature changed, you smile, because they'll never get the real answer. Step 4. Use the information to strengthen your frame. What you've gained from these 7 tests is clarity, not just about others, but about yourself. You now know who drains you, who competes with you, who can't stand your rise, who punishes disagreement. This insight isn't just tactical, it's structural. It hardens your inner circle. It sharpens your discernment, and most of all, it burns away your weakness, that old instinct to give everyone the benefit of the doubt. No more. From now on, you move with evidence. You don't guess, you confirm. That shift alone will make you untouchable. Step 5. Begin future interactions with subtle power markers. You've recalibrated internally, now it's time to reflect that externally. Not by confrontation, not by aggression, but by stillness. You validate less, you speak less, you smile less, you respond when it suits you, not out of bitterness, but from calculated control. This unnerves manipulators. They can't figure out what changed. They sense the shift, but not the source. They lose grip, and they spiral, trying to get back into a position you no longer allow. And all the while, you move forward, you rise. You continue building, surrounded only by those who've passed your tests, or those who remain in place, powerless exactly where you need them. Because in the Machiavellian world, you don't react to deception. You restructure your empire around it. And once you've seen the truth, you never give the same access twice. Most people never get this far. They sense deception, they feel the off energy, they catch the slip of a mask, but they dismiss it. They doubt themselves. They go back to sleep. But not you. You ran the tests, you observed the cracks, you saw what was never meant to be seen, and now comes the final stage. Not reacting, not confronting, not punishing, but turning insight into sovereignty. Machiavelli's genius wasn't in reading people. It was in what he did after the reading. Because exposure is not the end game. It's the signal to begin a new strategy. Here's what you must now internalize. Rule 1. Never reveal you were testing them. People can live with being disliked. They can even survive being distrusted. But being outmaneuvered, that threatens their identity. The moment someone realizes you tested them and they failed, they'll do one of two things. 1. Beg for re-entry with emotional manipulation. 2. Retaliate to reclaim dominance. Don't give them that playbook. Let them believe you never saw it. Let them believe they got away with it. Because in that illusion, they're manageable, predictable, and powerless. Machiavelli never warned his enemies. He simply rearranged the room while they were still pretending to hold power. That's the move. Rule 2. Close the leaks. Every person you tested now knows something about you. Some know your habits, some know your soft spots, some know your schedule, your plans, your vulnerabilities. Lock them out. You don't ghost. You neutralize, you shift routines, you remove access, you stop bleeding information. They'll feel the door closing, but they'll never hear it slam. This is not revenge, it's risk management. Rule 3. Let distance do the damage. You don't need to curse a traitor, just stop clapping for them. Slow replies, brief answers, no emotional indulgence, no accusations, no dramatic exits, just the slow withdrawal of privilege. They'll feel the chill, but they won't be able to trace the cold wind. And that's exactly where your power lives, in the silence they can't decode. Rule 4. Use exposure as a filter. Going forward, every failed test has made you sharper, more precise. Was it envy that surfaced during your success? Was it withdrawal when you disagreed? Was it opportunism when you lowered your guard? Good. Now you know what to look for early in others. Next time, you don't wait 6 months. You drop a small pressure point on day 1 and you watch. If they fail, the door stays shut. If they pass, you open it slightly. This is how power scales. Not through more allies, but through fewer calibrated ones. Rule 5. Don't let exposure turn into isolation. Let it refine your circle. This is where most fail. They get addicted to the exposure, to the withdrawal, to the cutting off, and they end up alone, guarded, suspicious, paranoid. But that's not Machiavellian. That's trauma dressed as strategy. Machiavelli had allies. He had loyal confidants, but only after they passed the fire. So when someone proves themselves, when they pass the tests, not once but consistently, honor that. Not with blind trust, but with measured inclusion. Power doesn't thrive in isolation. It thrives in precision. Let's end with the core truth. Exposure is a gift, but what you do with it is power. Most people give their loyalty for free. You don't. You test. You observe. You calibrate. And when the mask slips, you don't announce it. You adjust. Because the goal isn't to expose someone and destroy them. It's to expose someone and make sure they never have power over you again. That's how you protect your mission. That's how you build an empire without cracks. That's how you become unshakable. Most people walk blind, charmed by smiles, disarmed by words, fooled by surface. But not you. Not anymore. You've seen what's beneath the mask. You've learned how to test, how to watch, how to move. This isn't paranoia. It's precision. And precision is what separates pawns from players. So if this video lit something in you, if it gave you eyes where you used to have instincts, then understand this. This channel is your armory, your training ground, your advantage in a world that rewards only the aware. Subscribe now, because the game isn't over. This was just one tactic. The next one, it will make you impossible to betray. Don't just survive the game, master it.